This deck is a hidden monster in High Infinite. The Batroc package has received a lot of coverage, but much of that coverage has been focused on its applications in Scream decks for obvious reasons. There's overlap between Kraven, Sam Wilson, and the cards that are played with Scream, and Batroc himself, so it makes sense that that is the obvious home for it. However, once you start becoming a Scream deck, you end up losing some valuable pieces of your puzzle. And what this deck is trying to do is provide a much more balanced and offensive attempt at being a mid-rangey style of deck with the Batroc package, but backed up by a lot more beef than with a Scream deck. And I think it successfully accomplishes this in a really powerful way. This is a list that I played to a 60+% win rate in High Infinite. I had a ton of success with it, both on and off stream. Yes, I was playing off stream because my power died during the stream, and so I just kept playing on my phone. All of that is to say that this is a very strong list that has flown under the radar for far too long. I typically try to keep up with Marvel Snap, YouTube, and Twitter content, and so far the only person I've actually seen talking about this list is actually NinaIsNoob, which is not exactly what I'd expect for a list that is this good. I feel like it is incredibly underrated, an extremely powerful list, and one of the better piles of good cards and reactive tech in the entire game, and it deserves respect as such. With all of that said, let's get into the card-by-card breakdown. Kitty Pryde is maybe my favorite card in the entirety of Marvel Snap because of the ways in which she allows you to repeat various abilities on other cards while gaining power on herself and simultaneously allowing you to manipulate priority in a powerful way. In this deck, she can do things like fill up a lane so your Silk doesn't go there, trigger Silk herself, carry Galacta and Gwenpool buffs, and honestly so much more. She is just an excellent utility piece and a very powerful card in her own right. Batroc the Leaper is much like a sort of fixed version of pre-nerf Kitty Pryde in that he is a one-drop that can get to very high levels of power. But you're not just playing him so he can be a 1/8 with Sam Wilson or Silk, for example. You're playing him in large part so he can also trigger and give your Hydra Stomper more power. This is the Batroc package. Batroc going along with a Sam Wilson, meaning that you're guaranteeing extra stats on the Batroc, but then that also guarantees extra stats on your Kraven because Batroc is moving to that lane, or on your Hydra Stomper because Batroc is also moving. That package is what is sort of being introduced into the mid-range good stuff archetype here. Batroc, Sam Wilson, Kraven, and of course, Hydra Stomper and Silk are what make up the core here. In a way, this is the new Silky Smooth. It's doing many of the same things, dodging a lot of relevant tech, and using scalars that get up to about 8, of which Batroc is 1, to be a meaningfully powerful deck that runs its own Shang-Chi, but very often is able to dodge opposing Shang-Chi. I don't know if there's a nerf they could do to Sam Wilson that would take it out of this list. It is so much the preferable 2-drop that moves your Batroc and activates other things while you do it to Silk that it's honestly hard to describe. I think if it was a 2-1, we would still be doing this. Maybe even if it was a 2-0, we would still be doing this. Like, if Sam gets a nerf, it is much more likely to impact the playability of this package as a whole than it is for Sam to leave this package on a nerf. He is just that much better than Silk because of how you are able to control where his shield is actually going. And Sam Wilson into Kraven is one of the most powerful starts for any sort of reactive mid-range deck which we can play as in the entire game. Sam Wilson into Kraven with a Batroc is even better. At that point, you stop dodging Shang-Chi on your Kraven. He will get bigger than that. That kind of start, when you have Batroc on 1, you play it in the location that the shield is in, you play Sam Wilson in another location, and then you Kraven on 3, That kind of start is the absolute turbo monstrous start that a deck like this can get. When you are doing that, these are the best scalers in the game for the cheapest amount, to the point that we don't even necessarily worry about losing Scream from this package because our other scalers are that good. I've seen a lot of takes calling this month's cards forgettable, and I really think that's underselling Surge, who, while I don't think is actually necessarily broken, is perhaps the most played non-season pass card to release since Arishem. She is, as of right now, the most played card in the game at all levels of the game, going from 30 to 100, and then in top 10% infinite. This is going to be the card you see the absolute most, and at the same time, she does not have nearly the win rate of an Iron Patriot or a Sam Wilson when they were in that position, respectively. She's a little bit above 50%, but she's not pushing the 53, 54, 55 that those cards were before they ate their nerfs. I do think that it's reasonable to talk about, is this ubiquity such a dangerous thing? Surge does go in a ton of different decks because there are a ton of different decks that can use her. In this deck, Surge is mostly a vehicle for cheating out some very powerful 4-drops a little bit earlier than you would otherwise be able to, but she's also the kind of thing that just generally smooths your curve in a deck that mostly runs fairly cheap cards. The ability to, say, play a Galacta on 3 is a large part of why you're playing her, but so is the ability to play a 3-cost Galacta alongside a Sam Wilson on 4, or on 5, I should say. That kind of stuff, the way in which she just enables you to get cards out of your hand by just a small margin, is really what she's about. She's not the greatest card in the game, she's not the best card in this deck, but what she is she takes a deck that's already a bunch of parts that work well together, and she just oils it up. She makes it run even smoother. This is the oil to your engine. Craven is a very powerful receiver of your engine. I don't necessarily think of him as part of the engine. The engine is the stuff that moves, right? Craven is the payoff. Craven is the payoff to your engine. He's the payoff to having Batroc and Sam Wilson moving into his lane. He's the payoff to having Silk and Batroc moving around all the time. This is the card that gets you the numbers in order to justify the rest of what you're doing. And as a 2-drop, he's arguably going to get to the biggest possible numbers for a 2-drop in the game. It is not uncommon for you to be able to make this guy Shang-Chi-able. You don't always want to do that. Sometimes you do. But it is an option that is available to you a pretty decent amount of the time. The dude just gets enormous. I have been a noted Silk hater recently. I've not enjoyed it in the Scream versions of this deck, and I think it's pretty easy to pinpoint why I don't hate her nearly as much here, and the answer is very much that we are running Kitty Pryde. Being able to be a Kitty Pryde deck means that a lot of the bad outcomes from Silk, where she's actually going to screw you over, clog up a location, your opponent's going to play on that location on turn 6 and win, are not necessarily going to happen to you anymore. Kitty Pryde makes playing Silk so much easier, so much more straightforward, and so much less likely to screw you over. Couple of play tips here. Typically, the way you want to handle having an early Batroc is by playing the thing that moves in the Batroc lane. So that means if you have a Sam Wilson, you're playing the Batroc in the lane with the shield, and that means if you have a Silk, you are playing the Batroc in the lane with the Silk. This comes up a lot, like let's say it's turn 3, you have Silk Batroc. If you order it in that order, Silk will move when Batroc turns face up and drag Batroc with her. You're gonna want to remember that as well. One of the other things that can happen though is that Silk and Batroc can get desynced because your opponent also gets to play cards, unfortunately. And so that can be a little bit awkward. You can lose out on some points when they become desynced. So you do have to plan your turns, not only around preventing Silk from screwing you over, which is priority 1, but also in terms of preventing them from getting desynced if it's at all possible. Definitely something you have to think about whenever you're playing these cards together. Hydra Stomper is your method for getting really big. And he's not incredibly consistent at that. But when you have a deck like this, one of the main ways that you can lose is your opponent just sets up a couple of lanes that are too big for you to reasonably contest. You tend to struggle, for example, with like a really big Thanos, because you can't really Shang-Chi it, so you only really have the option to beat something like that if you can go over the top of it in a meaningful way. And you usually need to add up multiple threats in order to beat a lane like that. Hydra Stomper is the card that has the ability to, in certain spots, if you have been making him big, get to that level. For example, I've seen this guy get as big as 20. That's not a common occurrence. It's actually a very rare occurrence, but I have seen it happen. I've seen this guy get as big as 15 or 16 with a Galacta buff. You don't have other cards that are going to do that. You just don't. And especially cards that don't need to scale up visibly on the board. The main utility of Hydra Stomper is not just being big, because Kraven can get big, and Batroc can get big, and yes, he can get a little bit bigger, but that's not why you want him in here. You want him in here because he's your only surprise big guy. You don't have other options for that. So in this case, we're using him for his ongoing ability, which means a lot of the time, and I mean a lot of the time, I am not curving this guy out if I have other options. Rocket and Groot is our backup Batroc mover. It's obviously not a great scenario if we don't have Silk or Sam Wilson. Rocket and Groot can get us at least one move for the Batroc, which means we can discount our Miles Morales as well. It's not an amazing thing, but even moving a Rocket and Groot that drags a Batroc with it into a Kraven lane can still be a very valuable play. 4 points on the Kraven, 2 points on the Batroc, however many points you actually get out of being the Rocket and Groot gamer, discounting your Miles. Obviously, that's not a situation we want to find ourselves in a lot of the time, but this is a card game and you are subject to the luck of the draw sometimes. I think figuring out what tech card you want to play in this spot is gonna be maybe a little bit harder than you might think. This is obviously Shang-Chi, and that is the one I've chosen because it's the one that's the hardest to prove wrong. But I wouldn't be overly shocked if, for example, Enchantress was the right pick here. I wouldn't be overly shocked if Red Guardian was the right pick here. I've opted for Shang in order to try to alleviate some of the issues that you run into that I talked about within the Hydra Stomper section, where it's just like, you have a lot of things that get pretty big, but if something gets really big, you need answers. And I think that's sort of why I'm going for Shang instead of the others here. But I do think it's probably pretty close between them. One of the things that this deck has that the Scream decks genuinely kind of lack, despite being built around a similar package, is beef. And that's what you're gaining by not being a Scream deck, is you're gaining beef. You're gaining Galacta, you're gaining Shang-Chi, you're gaining Gwenpool. Beef. Big, important, swingy cards. And you're losing out on some stuff too. I'm not going to sit here and act like Scream isn't a powerful package to build around, but having that beef, being able to be like, oh, not only am I using all my energy really well, I'm using all my energy every turn and I'm getting a ton out of it. Galactic Kitty Pride, again, not the greatest thing in the world, but when it's triggering other stuff and you get to hold your power for later in the game and figure out exactly where you want to distribute it, that can be an incredibly powerful thing to do. This is just a card that, especially if you're able to get it out early off of a Surge, is going to do so much work, is going to create so much power across the board, and will be able to, in many cases, redistribute the power that it creates, which is such a valuable thing to do. A lot of why I actually started playing this deck was because I picked up this Gwenpool variant that I've been waiting on for a long time. So shout out to Yoshimizu, because otherwise I don't think I would be making this video right now. And this is, of course, a very solid Gwenpool deck. Like, obviously, the beef is sort of the main consideration here. Off a Surge, this is a 3-7. Playing a 3-7 Gwenpool is genuinely one of the strongest things you can do in the game. But even so, we've talked a lot about the ways in which this deck sort of weaponizes picking your spots. This is a great deck for having people just not know how much power you have and where that power is going to go. Your range is very large with this deck, and Gwenpool is a big part of that. Downsides of Gwenpool, though, it's not always reliable. You're not always getting the amount of points that you want out of this card. Like, a lot of what this card is doing is good, but it's not like always hitting the stuff you're actually going to play on the final turn of the game. Miles Morales is just like a 1/6. A lot of your final turns are like Shang-Chi, Miles Morales at 1, Kitty Pryde at 1. And so you end up having like Shang-Chi and then like 12 power of 1-drops to distribute. That's just a really strong thing to do. And Miles Morales allowing that to happen is obviously good. All right, so with all of that said, let's jump into the gameplay. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I obviously really appreciate it. Leave a comment. I still read all of them. In line of deck credit, the person I got this deck from was Derek. I have seen Shamo saying that he made like the same kind of thing, but I do know that I got this deck from Derek, so shout out to Derek. Thank you so much for watching. I have been KMBest. You have been phenomenal, and I will see you in the next one. Okay. Created cards. Well, they're not a Thanos deck, so that really doesn't matter too much. But I like that I have a Surge early. Ooh. I'm gonna play the Surge now, since if I'm getting stuff out of my hand, it should be a lot easier to play more stuff. Penny Parker is crazy. I played 2/2 drops, baby. Oh, I get it. Oh, I get it. Yeah, we are indeed back. Holy. Holy. What's happening? Am I disconnected again? Okay, I was, but that wasn't my fault. Spider the Doctor Strange. Exactly what we want to see. The problem is if I get Gwenpool, no, it's fine. It's fine. If I get Gwenpool, it's fine. Because I get Gwenpool, Miles, and Kitty Pryde. Dak Beast Strange. Okay. So, what the hell is going on? Something like this? Something like this, perhaps? Oh boy, some scary shit's happening here. Alright, Miles Morales. Still Kitty Pryde. Doctor Strange to the right lane. That was sort of expected. Our goal here is to beat a dagger. Right? There's the dagger middle. Which actually, yes, I'm into this so far. Get us an extra proc here and here. Ghost Spider, still kind of okay with what's happening here. I'm with it. And Aranya, perfect. Yeah, we're good. We did it. You know, we were kind of expecting to eat, like, if they moved, maybe worth considering. But since we did, this puts us in a bad spot. All right, what did they get? We got Juggernaut Killmonger. That's a Surfer list, all right. We've got a Surge Gwenpool kind of thing going on. None of my cards are that good against me. But I don't think I got, like, particularly... Oh, okay, now they're just playing my dad. That's really bad. My Surge. How you say, oof. Holy shit, does this actually work? That can't be right. Oh my god. Oh my god. I can't believe this shit. Real? Jesus Christ. Real. We beat Loki Surge. What are the odds of that? We beat Loki Surge with our genius good play over here. Because... No! No! Oh my god. I'm so boned. Mine should be a little bigger because I've got the silk. That kind of works for me, actually. Throw Cryo for C-Ball? I don't really think it matters. Yeah? Might be this. Really fascinating situation. Oh, so they just went for the... Wow, I mean, that works too, dude. That works amazingly for me. Mr. City, thank you for the tier 1. Much appreciated. It just, we also got the secondary read loss. The secondary read incorrect. Ah, I see Fudge is playing a deck with Killmonger. This stinks. That's good. So it seems that there's maybe not a Killmonger coming down. I don't really know what's up with that. Copy the V hand. Alright, so good news is that demon's gonna be Shang-Chi. These guys get heated over to here. Batroc follows. So they go Misery left here, yeah? And if I'm not mistaken, that means the Frigga will copy the Frigga. But they will get a demon. And then another demon. That's how I see this happen. So the Frigga should copy the Frigga here. If I have this right. I have truly no idea. So... they go demon here, it's 12-12. Yeah, I really don't know. There's a bunch of shit that happens. And then the demon, so we're at 16. We win it by 1. Let's go, baby. They were maxed out on power on that right lane. The biggest thing they could put, don't play the tech card, you instantly die. Alright, so what are you? Swear to God, if it's negative again, I'm gonna lose it. Oh, it's hella. Oh, discard. Oh, is that better or worse? Ugh. Same dynamic, unfortunately. Because they're gonna end up Modocking, right? Double Khonshu. Okay, so it's Khonshu. Where's the card they need to actually discard to make that happen? I'm kind of confused. Is it just like MODOK? Do I beat that? I mean, I'm going to 37. I feel like I've got a pretty good shot. Yeah, MODOK twice. Hit Proxima. Apocalypse to 24. Apocalypse to 28. So 28. Yeah, we win, right? 37's a big number. Woo-hoo-hoo! God damn, dude.